The strange thing about a 100,000 salary is that it can change how the world sees you before it changes how your life feels. On paper, it looks like success. It sounds like comfort. It feels like a number that should finally separate you from financial stress. For years, maybe even decades, six figures carried a kind of cultural magic. It meant you had made it. It meant the bills should feel lighter, choices should feel wider, and money should stop being the quiet background noise behind every decision. Then the paycheck arrives. And somehow, the number that looked so powerful in your imagination becomes smaller the moment real life touches it. The salary says 100,000, but the bank account does not feel like 100,000. The rent does not care that you crossed a milestone. The mortgage does not applaud. The grocery store does not lower its prices because you finally got promoted. The car insurance, the phone bill, the student loan payment, the health plan, the childcare invoice, the credit card balance, the emergency repair, the tax withholding, the retirement contribution, they all arrive with their hands out. And by the time the month is over, the question becomes uncomfortable. How can someone make what used to be considered great money and still feel broke? The answer is not as simple as people spend too much. That explanation is easy, and sometimes it is partly true, but it misses the deeper story. Because for many people, the problem is not that $100,000 became worthless. The problem is that $100,000 is being asked to buy a life that has become much more expensive than the old image of six figures ever prepared us for. The number still belongs to an older dream. For a long time, six figures was not just income, it was a symbol. It suggested a certain kind of adulthood, a house, a decent car, savings, a family if you wanted one, a vacation now and then, some money going into retirement, and enough breathing room that one surprise bill did not feel like a personal disaster. That image did not come from nowhere. It was built during a period when the relationship between income and major life expenses looked different. A good salary could stretch further because some of the biggest pieces of the middle-class life were more reachable. Housing was still expensive, but in many places, it did not consume the same emotional and financial space. Debt existed, but student loans had not become as heavy for so many households. Cars, insurance, healthcare, childcare, and education all mattered, but the full stack of modern obligations had not yet become what it is now. So when people hear 100,000, they do not only hear a number, they hear a promise. They hear security. They hear independence. They hear finally being able to stop worrying so much. But when that salary enters the modern economy, the promise gets tested immediately. The first cut happens before you spend a single dollar. A 100,000 salary sounds like $8,333 a month. That is the number people imagine. That is the number that makes the salary feel large. But very few people actually live on that number. Taxes come first, federal taxes, payroll taxes, and in many places state or local taxes. Then come health insurance premiums, retirement contributions, and other paycheck deductions. Some of these are necessary, some are responsible, some are unavoidable, but all of them create the same result. The salary that impresses people is not the money you actually get to use. This is one of the first traps in how we think about income. Gross income creates status. Net income pays the bills. That difference matters because the world talks about your salary before deductions, but your life happens after deductions. Your landlord does not ask how much you make before taxes. Your mortgage does not care about your headline income. Your grocery bill is paid with what actually lands in your account. So the first shock of six figures is that it often does not feel like six figures. The person who thought they had crossed into a new financial life may find that their real monthly cash flow feels much more ordinary than the salary suggests. But even that does not fully explain the pressure. Because after the government and benefits take their share, the biggest cost is usually waiting at home. Housing is where the dream starts to bend. For many people, the highest paying jobs are concentrated in expensive places. The salary rises, but so does the cost of being close to the opportunity. A person may earn more in a major city, but the rent may absorb the raise before it can become freedom. A promotion in a high-cost metro can look impressive from the outside and still feel disappointing from the inside because the housing market quietly captures so much of the gain. That is the mechanism most people feel but rarely name. The job market gives you more money to live near opportunity. The housing market charges you for the right to access it. This is why $100,000 does not mean the same thing everywhere. In one city, it may provide real breathing room. In another, it may barely qualify someone for a modest apartment in a safe area with a reasonable commute. The salary is identical, but the life it buys is completely different. And housing is not just one expense. It shapes the rest of the budget. A cheaper home may mean a longer commute. A better commute may mean higher rent. A safer neighborhood may mean less money left for savings. A good school district may push the price even higher. A home purchase may bring property taxes, maintenance, insurance, repairs, closing costs, and furniture. Renting may bring annual increases, fees, deposits, and the constant reminder that stability is not fully yours. Housing does not simply take money, it takes options. That is why it has such a powerful effect on the feeling of being broke. When too much income is locked into the roof over your head, every other decision becomes narrower. You are not necessarily poor. You may not even be struggling in the visible sense, but the margin disappears. And when margin disappears, a high salary can still feel like a cage. Then comes transportation, the second quiet giant in many budgets. In much of America, a car is not a luxury. It is the price of participation. You need it to get to work, to buy groceries, to take children to school, to reach cheaper housing, to live outside the most expensive parts of the city. But the car itself is only the beginning. There is the payment, insurance, gas, repairs, maintenance, registration, parking, tolls, depreciation, and the occasional expensive problem that appears at the worst possible time. So a person who moves farther away to save on rent may simply transfer part of the cost into transportation. The bill changes shape, but it does not always disappear. This is how modern adulthood works for many households. It is not one dramatic expense that destroys the budget. It is a bundle of fixed costs, each one reasonable on its own, but heavy when stacked together. Housing, transportation, healthcare, groceries, insurance, utilities, internet, phone plans, childcare, student loans, retirement savings, emergency savings, dental bills, car repairs, family obligations, work clothes, professional tools, occasional travel, birthday gifts, weddings, subscriptions, replacing things that break, paying for convenience because time is gone. None of these has to be absurd for the total to become exhausting. That is why the modern middle class can feel so strange. From the outside, it may look comfortable. From the inside, it can feel like managing a machine where every part needs money to keep running. And this is before debt enters the room. Debt changes the meaning of income because debt means a portion of your future has already been claimed. When someone finally reaches $100,000, they may not be starting from zero. They may be arriving after years of lower income, education costs, moving costs, credit card balances, medical bills, car loans, or family responsibilities. The success arrives late. The bills arrived earlier. That is why a raise can feel less exciting than expected. It does not always create new freedom. Sometimes it simply allows someone to catch up on obligations that were building quietly in the background. Debt turns the past into a monthly payment. A student loan is not just an education bill. It is a claim on the income you hoped would finally feel like progress. A credit card balance is not just old spending. Sometimes it is the cost of surviving a lower income phase, an emergency, a relocation, a period between jobs, or a life stage where the math did not work. A car loan is not just transportation. It is the price of being able to earn the salary in the first place. This does not mean every debt is wise. It means debt often has a story behind it. And when the story reaches the present, even a strong salary can feel smaller than it looks. But there is another layer, and it is more psychological. When income rises, expectations rise too. This is where lifestyle inflation enters the conversation. It is real. People do spend more when they earn more. They move into better apartments. They buy nicer cars. They eat out more often. They travel differently. They upgrade their phones, their clothes, their gym, their furniture, their neighborhoods. They pay for convenience because their jobs are demanding and their time feels scarce. It is easy to judge this from the outside, but inside the person's life, the logic often feels different. A higher salary does not only create money, It creates permission. Permission to stop living like everything is temporary. Permission to reward yourself after years of work. Permission to buy back time. Permission to look like you belong in the professional world you have entered. Permission to stop feeling behind. People do not only spend money on objects, they spend money on relief, on identity, on status, on comfort, on proving to themselves that the struggle was worth something. And that is why lifestyle inflation is so powerful. It does not usually arrive as one reckless decision. It arrives disguised as normal life. A better apartment because the old one was exhausting. A safer car because the old one kept breaking. A nicer dinner because the week was brutal. A vacation because burnout has a price too. More takeout because there is no time to cook. More services because work has consumed the hours that used to save money. Some of it is unnecessary. Some of it is understandable. All of it competes with the idea that a higher salary should automatically create freedom. The uncomfortable truth is that satisfaction adapts quickly. The lifestyle that once looked like success becomes the new baseline, and once it becomes the baseline, losing it feels like falling backward. This is why someone can double their income and still not feel twice as free. The math improved, but the expectations moved. And expectations do not move alone. They move inside a social world. A person making 100,000 rarely compares themselves to the entire country. They compare themselves to the people around them, their coworkers, their friends, their neighbors, their classmates, their online feed, the couple with 2 incomes, the friend whose parents helped with a down payment, the coworker who bought a house before interest rates changed, the influencer who makes luxury look normal, the person in the same office who earns more, the family member who seems to have built a stable life on less. Money is not experienced in isolation. It is experienced inside a ranking system. That ranking system can make a strong salary feel ordinary. This is especially true in environments where many people earn good money. In a high-income professional circle, 100,000 may not feel like wealth. It may feel like the starting line. Everyone around you seems to be saving more, traveling more, investing more, buying homes sooner, or handling life with less stress. You do not see their debt. You do not see the family help. You do not see the trade-offs. You only see the visible result. So the feeling of being broke is not always about absolute poverty. Sometimes it is about relative disappointment. You thought 100,000 would move you into a different category. Instead, it moved you into a more expensive comparison group. That is a brutal psychological shift. At 50,000, you may dream of 6 figures as escape. At 100,000, you may be surrounded by people who make 150,000, 200,000, or more. The horizon moves. The finish line becomes another starting line. The raise that was supposed to end pressure introduces a more expensive version of normal. And this is where the word broke becomes complicated. Many people who say they feel broke are not saying they have nothing. They are saying they do not feel safe. They are saying their income is already spoken for. They are saying one emergency could undo months of discipline. They are saying they can pay the bills but cannot build the kind of cushion that would make life feel calm. Because financial comfort does not come from income alone. It comes from margin. Margin is the space between what comes in and what must go out. It is the difference between paying bills and feeling secure. It is the difference between surviving the month and having options. It is what lets a car repair be annoying instead of terrifying. It is what turns a medical bill into a problem instead of a crisis. It is what allows someone to change jobs, leave a bad situation, help family, take a risk, invest, rest, or simply breathe. Without margin, income becomes a pass-through system. Money arrives, money leaves, and the person in the middle feels like an accountant for obligations. This is why a 100,000 salary can feel broke even when the person is not technically poor. The feeling comes from low freedom, not low status. And the more fixed the costs become, the harder it is to change the feeling. You can cancel a subscription. You can eat out less. You can delay a purchase. But you cannot easily cancel rent. You cannot instantly change childcare. You cannot casually remove a car from a car-dependent life. You cannot stop needing healthcare. You cannot undo student loans overnight. You cannot always move to a cheaper city without changing jobs, family support, schools, or career paths. Personal discipline matters. But personal discipline operates inside structural reality. That is the part people often miss. The modern economy has separated the image of success from the feeling of security. You can have the job title, the salary, the apartment, the car, the health plan, the retirement account, and still feel like the whole thing is more fragile than it looks. Because the old middle-class dream has been unbundled. A home is one price. Healthcare is another. Childcare is another. Education is another. Retirement is another. Transportation is another. Time is another. Stability is another. Each piece has its own cost, and each cost competes with the others. So the person making $100,000 is often not choosing between luxury and responsibility. They are choosing between different forms of responsibility. Save for retirement or save for a house. Pay down debt or build an emergency fund. Live close to work or live somewhere affordable. Pay for childcare or reduce working hours. Buy convenience or protect cash. Help family or protect your own future. Enjoy life now or prepare for a future that feels increasingly expensive. This is why the emotional experience of six figures has changed. It is still a good salary. In many places, it is a very good salary. It can provide opportunity, stability, and choices that lower incomes do not. Pretending otherwise would be dishonest. But it is no longer a universal guarantee of comfort. That is the key. A $100,000 does not automatically mean someone has wealth. It does not automatically mean they have strong cash flow. It does not automatically mean they have low debt, affordable housing, low childcare costs, good health, family support, or a secure future. It simply means they have a high income before the system begins subtracting from it. The salary is high. The margin can still be low. That is the answer, hiding beneath the title. People are not shocked because $100,000 buys nothing. It buys a lot. They are shocked because it does not buy the life they were told it would buy. It does not always buy a house, safety, savings, freedom, family stability, and peace of mind all at once. It may buy access to those things, but not ownership of them. It may open doors, but the rooms behind those doors are expensive. And that difference matters. Because for a long time, the question people asked was, how much do you make? But that question is becoming less useful. The better question is, how much of your income is actually yours after your life has taken its share? That is where the truth lives. Not in the salary number, not in the title, not in the old cultural meaning of six figures, but in the space left over after taxes, housing, transportation, insurance, debt, food, childcare, savings, and the cost of staying functional in a demanding world. A person can earn $100,000 and still feel broke because broke is not always the absence of income. Sometimes, broke is the absence of room. Room to make a mistake, room to rest, room to absorb a surprise, room to plan beyond the next paycheck, room to say no, room to stop performing success and actually feel secure. That is why six figures feels different now. It still looks like a rival from the outside. But for many people living inside the modern cost of adulthood, it feels more like admission into a game where every level costs more than expected. And the real measure of money was never the number printed on the offer letter. It was the amount of freedom that number could actually buy.